Good Wednesday morning to you. Today we're going to go through chapter 7, or going from verse 24 to verse 30. And this is a story that has always intrigued me, and it used to be very confusing to me. It may be confusing to you because it seems outside of who Jesus is. The story does, anyway. So let's get started with the first three verses, 24 through 26. Jesus left that place and went to the vicinity of Tyre. He entered a house and did not want anyone to know it. Yet he could not keep his presence secret. In fact, as soon as she heard about it, a woman whose little daughter was possessed by an impure spirit or demon came and fell at his feet. The woman was a Greek born in Syrian Phoenicia. She begged Jesus to drive the demon out of her daughter. Now, Tyre is a Gentile city, so he's left the Jewish area and gone to Gentile territory. Now, this isn't the first time he's done this. We saw how he went across the lake to the Gentile part of the Gentile side of the lake, which was the area of the Gerasenes or the Gerasenes. Okay, but this time he goes to a place about 30, 40, 50 miles away, place called Tyre, which in the Old Testament was called a godless city. Okay, and he entered a house there. Now we see that since he entered a house, he evidently was known by somebody, or somebody probably knew who he was. I mean, people from Tyre and other areas like that had been coming to Galilee to see Jesus. So probably somebody that had listened to him already, maybe was intrigued, or maybe had even become a believer. Don't know. So anyway, he's there, and he's gone out of his way to get out of um, Galilee, where all the crowds were crowding in on. He needs rest. He needs time with his disciples, and he also shows. Okay, in the last story we read, he was talking about how the traditions of the elders were not as important as God's law, and he went against the traditions of the elders. And he's doing this again. I mean, going to Gentile territory is one thing, but the traditions say that you never go into a Gentile house. And so that's what he's doing. He's showing that he doesn't obey these Jewish traditions. And he meets a woman here, okay? A woman from, it's a Greek woman or a Gentile woman from, it says, born in Syrian Phoenicia. Most likely, she's probably an upper class, being from where she's at, or being born from where she's born. And we're going to see this interaction now. He's met her. Let's see what she wants now. Or, well, we've already seen that. It says she begged Jesus to drive out the demon. Okay. Now in verse 27, this is the verse that always got me. All right. Jesus says these words. He says, "For let the children eat all they want," he told her, "for it is not right to take the children's bread and toss it to the dogs." Now, at first glance, what he's saying, it just seems like what he's saying is, look, you're a Gentile, you're not worthy. The food or the healing, the good stuff I have, that's for the Jews. That's for the children of God. Uh, You don't get what I'm giving them. That's not what he's saying, though. It's I've always, like I said, I always kind of figured that, or wondered about why that was. But first of all, he's saying that the Jews are first. Uh, he's not saying that the Gentiles are not ever going to be fed, not ever going to be taken care of. He just says that the Jews, which are God's children, they're the anointed ones, the chosen ones, they're who he's working through. So they're first. But, and also I always thought, dogs, he's calling, it's not right to take the children's bread and toss it to the dogs. And I understand this, that, and I always, or when I didn't understand this reading, I knew that dogs in this time were not seen as lovable pets. When you called somebody a dog, it was like a ravaging beast. Um, a dog that might have something like rabies or some other form of disease, they were looked down upon. And that's how I thought all dogs were. But in reading today, I read some commentaries that said there evidently were house pets, and what Jesus uses, the word that he uses, is not the normal word for dog that would mean this, this wild dog, but instead, like it means little dog, like what we would consider a house pet. And I guess maybe they would too. Maybe they had house pets. If they didn't, at least it would mean a small dog, a harmless dog, something that's not so bad. So, and the fact is, he's already ministered to Gentiles. He's not saying Jews are better to Gentiles. The Gentiles, they've come to him, and we've seen stories. We read stories about how he heals Gentiles, and he both are taken care of just the same. So why does he say this? Why does he say it's not right to take the children's bread and toss it to the dogs, or the little dogs, the pet dogs? Um, well, maybe he wanted to test her faith, see how she would react. Or maybe, the disciples there, maybe he's trying to, he knows what's going to happen. He knows that she's going to continue and have faith, and he wants the disciples to show the disciples that faith is available, in all races, not just within the Jewish race. Okay, let's finish out. He said, first let the children come and eat what they want. It's not right that take the children's bread and toss it to the dogs. And then verse 28, her reply is this: Lord, she replied, even the dogs under the table eat the children's crumbs. Then he told her, for such a reply you may go. The demon has left your daughter. She went home and found her child lying on the bed and the demon gone. All right. I like the fact, she could argue. So, what do you mean a dog? I'm not a dog. What do you mean the Jew? They're not any better than us. They've been thinking they're better than us, but we're not any. We're just as good as they are. She doesn't argue the fact. She doesn't act like. No, she doesn't get defensive. But in the fact is, in reality, she is just as good in God's eyes. Now, the Jews were the chosen folks to bring his message and stuff. But all people, he loves all of his creations. So even though she had a right to argue the fact, she didn't do it. And Jesus rewards her faith. He rewards her faith. Now, even though it doesn't look like it at first glance, Jesus is starting to break down the walls between Jews and Gentiles. And we go to the book of Galatians. Paul writes these words. He says, there's no longer Jew or Greek. There's no longer slave or free. There's no longer male and female. For all of you are one in Christ Jesus. And Jesus is showing this just simply by going into Gentile territory, just by going into a Gentile person's house, by healing Gentile people. He's, and later on in the Gospel of John, anyway, he goes through Samaria, which means, the Samaritans, the Gentiles, all of these people that, he's come for all of them. The Jews were the chosen ones for him to come to first, to be a part of the message to the world. So let us remember, there is no longer Jew or Greek. There is no longer Gentile or pagan. There is no longer, or Christian or pagan. There is no longer black or white, or in God's eyes, there's actually no longer Muslim or Christian. He wants all of us to come to him through his son Jesus, because all of us are his creation. So let us remember that when we go through our day, we're not better than anybody. Nobody's better than us, not in God's eyes, but we're not better than anybody else. All right. Well, be safe in this pandemic. Have a great day. God bless.